fuck am I watching right now?
Party Creepers! Woo!
Harmony.
Man. Andy,
really-
for your second Party Creepers, man.
I know, I had to. I'm watching for the cues.
You're watching for the cues.
I'm watching for the cues.
I know. It was always funny because, when me and Lauren would record over Zoom, even if I watched for his cue to start it, it was still too late. It was already too late. So, like, when we would get the audio and I'd be trying to lay them over each other, I'm like, what the hell? Like, the rest of the conversation I could fix except for the Party Creepers. And I'd be like, I have to cut this section and move my Party Creepers up so it lines up. It's this whole ordeal.
Just because of like a little bit of a lag or something on the call?
Yeah, because of Zoom, there's always that a couple seconds or whatever.
Yeah, you got that sweet little... And we're back.
And we're back. Now to you, Dan. Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, exactly. So all that's over, being back in studio, and, we're doing our second Patreon exclusive. You have been on TCG proper for well over a month now.
I know. I feel
What is this,
so
episode
seasoned
6
now.
or something?
I don't even know. They all just blur together in a terrifying nightmare fuel.
Well, as far as Patreon is concerned, this is number 71, our 71st Patreon exclusive.
I think we start getting AARP now, don't we?
You do.
Can
you
we
do.
retire now?
Wise. No, you cannot. We're just getting started, and we have no savings.
Aye.
Okay.
401.
But
okay.
Right. Exactly. 40, huh? But guys, speaking of Patreon, we thank you very much. Because if you're hearing this right now, you are on Patreon. And we want to remind you guys that you can also watch this if you're on Patreon through a private YouTube link, which will be posted. If it's not posted when this episode comes out, it will be up very shortly. Okay. Also, speaking of Patreon, Sandu Stories Chapter 25 came out.
25.
Yes, it came out on time for the first time in forever.
I'm just so glad that Sandu Stories can finally rent a car. They can get their own way over here.
That's right.
Don't need to bring my ass every time.
And now they can be on time. It's crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah, we actually released Sandu Stories at midnight on Wednesday night or Thursday morning, like we all have always wanted to do.
Look at us.
But it's been nearly impossible until now. But yes, Sandu Stories Chapter 25 is the conclusion to our 3-part series entitled The Experiment, which is loosely based on the Philadelphia experiment, which we covered on Sandu Stories.
Or Sandu proper.
Sandu proper.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Right. Of course.
That was the weird little military experiment where they tried to teleport or make something invisible. And it's like, were you just doing radar or were you...
Yeah, we really don't know what happened there. That is a weird case. It really is. It really is. But yes, today we are covering the Texas Tower Sniper. Andy, what did you use to study?
I listened to a podcast series. I can't remember the name of it right now. I'll have to look it up. I can link it into this description. But I think it's like Monsters and Madness, or it's 2 little M words. I can't remember. But yeah, it was like an hour-long podcast series, and I also was able to watch a few YouTube videos on it.
Right.
But yeah, I've also just kind of remembered this for a while too. I was a big history buff in like high school and college. I originally wanted to be a history teacher when I went to college.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was kind of already I'd already kind of learned a bit about this guy in the past.
Okay.
But
right on. For some reason, I do not have who suggested the Texas Tower Sniper. Do we?
Ryan Green, or is that no? That's
is
the book.
Author of the book.
Well,
That's
he's a
very good reading, though.
He's a good suggestion.
I am very sorry, whoever you are. I know, obviously, you're a patron, and for some reason, I do not have it. I don't even have it on the calendar, which I always put it on the calendar on the day of. I remember. Sorry about that, guys. But whoever you are, send me a message. I'll send you a custom patch or something for getting you. But thank you for this suggestion.
We'll definitely give you a shout out on the next episode. We'll figure out who suggested it. We'll definitely make up for it. But you'll get something special too.
Right. We probably could check Patreon, honestly, on that suggestions post, which I will do. I'm sorry about that, guys. Let me throw my phone over here.
Michael just gets lost.
Great podcasting.
Michael just, I'm gonna leave now.
You know what, Andy, you got it for me.
I got shit to do.
Oh, but seriously, guys, super excited about this one. I killed myself on this timeline. I'm not even going to lie. I got a book called The Texas Tower Sniper by Ryan Green. I actually love Ryan Green as a true crime artist, honestly, as an author, rather. I read another book by him called...
if you're an artist of true crime, that's not a...
Yeah.
I think that's just called a perpetrator. That's...
Right. But yeah, he writes very well. He does a lot of research, and also the way he portrays the story, the way he embellishes some of the things are very tasteful. I don't think it's I wouldn't even call it exaggeration, honestly. It's more like he's just pay attention to small details and little instances in every interview that he does, and he's an amazing true crime author. So Ryan Green, highly recommend. This book was about 4 hours, I would say, give or take, maybe a little more. I listened to it on time and a half or time and 0.75.
Oh, you're on time and a half now?
Yeah.
You're in overtime now?
I'm in halftime. But yeah, so guys, that's our main source for this, as well as others. If you guys want to go down the rabbit hole of the Texas Tower Sniper or Charles Whitman, feel free to check our sources down below. Murderpedia, also another great source for this. A podcast called is it All Crime, No Cattle? A Texas true crime podcast did a phenomenal episode on this as well. I believe they might be a husband and wife duo. I'm not positive. But either way, they do a great job, so highly recommend that podcast as well.
Nice.
All right, anything else you want to say before we get into the intro?
I think we could probably go ahead and plug that TCG TikTok channel we got going now, Michael.
Dude, we do need to do that. We are actually on TikTok now that they're getting sued. So this is great.
We just like to get on a little bit behind.
Just a little bit behind. But yes, nonetheless, we are on TikTok. Our official screen name on TikTok is _TrueCrimeGuys_ because some asshole decided to take our name beforehand, so hopefully we would buy it from them, which we are not going to do. So
I'm gonna laugh. I'm really gonna laugh when we get an email or just like a text message. It was Lorne like 4 years ago. He's like, "Oh yeah, I just bought that just in case."
You son of a bitch.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Right? That does sound like something we would have done.
Totally forgot I had that.
Because we did the same thing with our URL, because it was taken for a while. Like our actual truecrimeguys.com was taken, and somebody wanted like $2,500 for it, and we're like, no way, we're not paying you $2,500. So we just waited a few months, and then it came open again. So there we go, we snatched it up. But yes, guys, go give us a follow on TikTok. We will be putting up 15 to 30-second clips of each episode. And my 16-year-old daughter Melody, is running that for us, which I am super thankful for because I hate that platform.
Yeah, you don't want us running that platform.
I don't want to be on it. I'm good. So she's taking full control of that, and I think she's doing a fantastic job. So please, guys, go follow us on TikTok. Go leave some comments, share the videos, all that good stuff. All right, you ready to get into this?
Let's do it.
Let's get into Charles Whitman.
Let's do it.
All right, we'll see you on the other side of the intro.
BBC Television News now presents a special program on today's mass murder in the capital city. Here is KTBC Television News Editor Neil Spells.
Good evening. One of history's worst mass murders occurred here in Austin today. By official count tonight, 49 persons were hit by gunfire. There are 16 dead and 33 injured. It started last night when a man reportedly killed his wife and his mother. That same man apparently rounded up an arsenal and supplies this morning and then went to the observation deck of the University of Texas Tower. It was then that terror rained down from the tower.
There must have been a hit that last time. We hear people outside of our building in an area where we can't now look safely saying, "Let's help that boy. Does he need help? Someone must be down."
Sirens screamed for the 90 minutes that the gun battle was in progress. It was hot, past 90 degrees on the ground, probably much hotter, high atop the tower with the sun ricocheting off the limestone with the same intensity as the police bullets. The university campus resembled a battlefield.
How many have you seen that are dead today?
Just one. I hope not anymore.
But there were more, many more, and the full impact of today's tragedy still has not been felt because the magnitude of the crime is practically impossible to comprehend.
No explanation of motive in any normal context is available. From the tower, I have never seen, nor have I ever imagined, anything like it.
All right, guys, let's get into it.
Please.
Let's start with the birth, because you know that's where people start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, it's up for debate.
That's true. We got all kind. That is so true. Never mind. I spoke way too soon.
Oh, hold on. We
Sorry,
have to take a tangent
pro-lifers.
now.
Hold
Let's
on a
just,
second. Hold on.
We thought this was going to be a true crime podcast. It turns into a political podcast real
Instantly,
quick. Let's go ahead and start.
right? Our first topic, abortion. No. But Charles Joseph Whitman was born in Lake Worth, Florida on June 24th, 1941. He shares a birthday with Mindy Kaling, which is Kelly from The Office, if you're unfamiliar. Tommy Lister, Debo from freaking Friday. Frickin' Debo, rest in peace. Rest in peace. And I had to put J.J. Reddick.
You had to put JJ.
I had to put J.J. Reddick.
Just because. He's from North Carolina.
Yes.
He played for Duke.
He's a legend. He's a North Carolina legend. And I had to put J.J. Reddick in here. Dude, I was J.J. Reddick in my backyard, dude. Shooting hoops, you know what I'm saying?
I went to an all-star game right after he graduated from Duke. I went to like a celebrity all-star game that my dad got tickets to, and I think he like gave away a pair of autographed shoes, and like I just happened to be the one who got them, and they were like black Adidas or like black Nikes, and they had like the blue swish, and they were signed by J.J. Reddick. I am not a Duke fan. I never was. And back in high school, I was a big Carolina fan.
Oh, no.
But I just got them, and one of my best friends was with me, who was a huge Duke fan.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I sold them.
Wow.
Not to him.
Asshole.
I was like,
oh my
nah.
gosh.
I was just wanting to troll him too. I was like, look at these shoes I got. They'll be worth so much money to somebody else.
Somebody would love to have these.
Somebody who can afford
if I had
these.
somebody in my life that would like them, I would give them to them, but I just can't think of anyone at the moment.
Yeah, maybe someday.
God, how old were you? What year was that?
I think I was probably like 17, maybe 16 or 17.
Okay.
You remember me back then, so yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, 2009, right? Something like that?
Mm-hmm.
2000.
Somewhere in there. I can't remember. That was something like that.
Right on, dude. Man, well, I wish you still had those shoes.
They fit me too.
Oh my God. You wear the same size as JJ Reddick? Wow. Well, when you were a kid.
Still.
Yeah, probably. All right. So anyways, back to this asshole, Charles Joseph Whitman. Now, we'll talk more about whether I think he's guilty, whether we think he's a piece of shit. This case opens a lot of discussion. And, you know, in the past, we really haven't covered a lot of these spree shooters on True Crime Guys because we don't want to make them famous. We don't want people copycatting this, thinking that, my name's going to be out there and all this shit. But I feel like with Charles Whitman, this is more of a mental disorder. And I think it's something that the light needs to be shed on. And like I said, I'll talk more about that at the end of the podcast when we're talking about his psychology, motives, and things like that. And
it's also because this one is actually a bit more of a historical event. It's not just because we do experience a lot of mass shootings, but this is a bit more of a historical event because of like it was kind of like the first big one.
Exactly.
So it's people study this case to be like, is this where it all started,
Right. Okay. But Charles, he was the eldest of three boys. He was often described as a good-looking, intelligent, popular, all-American young man. His younger brothers were Patrick and John, and that's really all you need to know about them, because who cares? Because they just kind of... Patrick and John just kind of towed the line, honestly. And they didn't really get the brunt of their father's abuse, their father's expectations. That was more put on Charles as the older son.
Yeah.
Charles's parents were Charles Sr. and Margaret Whitman. At least Margaret, were devout Roman Catholics. His dad, on the other hand, was a devout asshole. He was strict, abusive, but nonetheless a self-made man who put up with no bullshit and ran a very tight ship.
Yeah.
Okay, like so tight that like when Charles went to the Marines later in his life, he was like, "This is a nice relief.
It's like,
this
my
is
God,
nice.
I can finally breathe.
I only got to scrub my shoes once a day. This is nice.
Only one bed inspection."
Right. But when things weren't done Charles Sr.'s way, like we've alluded to, he was no stranger to violence. Things got pretty rough, and no one was excused from this in the family, not even his wife. Mm-hmm. Here's a quote from Charles Sr. about his wife. Quote, "I did on many occasions beat my wife. I have to admit it because of my temper. I knocked her around. but my wife was a fine woman and she understood my nature, end quote.
Yeah, just a self-proclaimed wife beater. It's just like, hey. But she still loves me, okay? Don't you?
Don't you? It's that fucking old school mentality where the husband like has to run shit. Everything has to be done his way. And I think a lot of, because of the pressure put on men at that time, every little imperfection that their family showed, they took it personal. And therefore it made them angry.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Plus, you have to remember Margaret is a devout Roman Catholic from her childhood through her life, so divorce is not really on her radar.
That's right. That's right. He was also a self-confessed gun fanatic, Charles Sr., I'm talking about here, and he brought his boys up with a gun in their hands, his words, teaching each of them to hunt as he slowly beat out any compassion that the boys had. And I put that in here because he noticed little Charles Jr., who's the main subject of our podcast today, had an affinity for animals growing up. And his dad... As most children do. And his dad hated that. His dad hated that he had pinpoint accuracy, even as a child, when it came to, a can or a target or a paper target or something like that. But he didn't want to shoot a squirrel. He didn't want to shoot a bird or whatever. But he quickly got over that.
Yeah.
Quickly. His dad, like I said, he wouldn't take no for an answer. And of course, when he finally did shoot an animal, his dad was probably ecstatic. So getting that approval from your father, getting that type of response would make him like, oh, this is a good thing. Yeah, I want to do this now.
I think I heard him say like he didn't even brag about how good of a shot he was until he shot an animal. It's like once he finally killed an animal, he was like, oh, that boy can hit an eyeball at a squirrel at 100 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I could have done the same thing with $1, but you didn't care until I shot a bird, until I shot something that actually mattered.
That is exactly right. Exactly right. Yeah, like we said, little Charles Jr. was a natural when it came to these things. He caught on quickly and was quite accomplished in hunting and the outdoors at a very young age, making Eagle Scout at just 12 years old, which is, I think there's been quite a few scouts that have probably done that now, but at the time, that was like unheard of.
I think he was the first one.
I think he's the youngest person, at his time, he was the youngest person to ever achieve Eagle Scout. I'm sure there's some genius that's been born between now and then and now that's done it. But
yeah, I don't remember if that was actually proven or not that he was the youngest Eagle Scout in history, or at the time the first one at 12 years old. But
right. But yeah, at the time he was one of the youngest to achieve this. He also was awarded God and Country Award, and he served as an altar boy in his local church.
What did you get that award for?
I don't know. I'm guessing for his in the Boy Scouts and also his part in the church.
I guess so. I was just like, that seems like just a made up award. Like you get the yellow award.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. I guess, like I say, with his service in the church and also his accomplishments and outdoors and whatnot.
Yeah, I guess so. Just that old school mentality.
Yep. Yeah, and it seemed like nothing could really slow Charles down. Until at age 16, he encountered his first true worthy opponent, appendicitis.
You son of a bitch!
You son of a bitch! And
I'll beat it out of you too!
That's probably what his dad wanted to do, because his dad didn't even want to accept that he was sick. When he started complaining about it, he thought he was just bitching, because that's his dad saw sickness of any kind as illness. So
weakness.
Weakness. That's what I'm sorry. He saw it as weakness. And so when he first got appendicitis, they ignored it for a while, but they found out this shit's serious, and he underwent an appendectomy, obviously. And he Charles Jr. actually adored his time in the hospital. It was his first break from his father, and also the world around him's expectations. He felt like he needed to be perfect, and it's sometimes, even when a child seems to excel at every single thing, sometimes that makes it even harder because they have yet to experience failure.
True.
Right? So with every task, every new challenge they take on, it's like the pressure becomes a little more bearing, a little more insurmountable, because they don't want to fail for the first time. They don't want to be, humbled for the first time.
You have to think also this time in the hospital, it's like the first time he's ever actually been coddled or cared for, or like people are actually like waiting on him hand
Precisely,
and foot.
Because when his mother tried, his dad would slap the shit out of her.
Yeah, it's like this is the first time he has people actually walking up. Are you okay? Do you need anything? Can I get you anything? No, just rest. And he's shocked by this.
He's like, I get to rest?
He's like just one eye open the whole time, like, where is he? Where is he? Where is he? Where is he?
Right? Well, not long after getting out of the hospital, after his appendectomy, maybe he wanted to go back. We don't know. But he also experienced an awful motorcycle accident, placing him in the hospital for an extended amount of time. The cause of the accident is still unknown to this day. Some even speculate that Charles crashed on purpose. This could have caused some frontal lobe damage as well, which they did find out later in life. Because, frontal lobe damage has been tied to changes in mood, even changes, like complete changes in personality. One person comes to mind, Sam Kinison. Mm-hmm. Sam Kinison was a very happy, joyful, but not funny person. And then he got hit by a car, and he became an asshole, angry as hell, but funny as shit.
True. He also had his heart broken.
The same thing happened to Rosie O'Donnell.
That very true.
The same thing happened to Rosie O'Donnell. After long hospital stints, after getting hit by a car with head trauma, their personalities changed and they got funny.
And a lot of the things with frontal lobe trauma is your inhibitions. It lowers that reasoning of I shouldn't do this or should I do this? I'm just going to do it.
Yep. And maybe he just wanted to get away from his dad. Honestly, who knows?
Obviously.
But I know one thing. I know he did on the night he stumbled home drunk from a high school party.
Yeah.
He did not want to be around his dad at that time. His father was waiting in a lounge chair by the pool. Charles figured his father would be fast asleep by that time, but unfortunately he was wide awake as Charles tried to slip in through the back gate and tiptoe around the pool. Little did he know he was in for the boss fight of his life.
This is so Red Foreman to me a little bit, like just from that 70s show, just like sitting in the backyard, just like,
yep.
How you doing, boy?
Yeah, exactly. Except for he had no gun. He probably just had like a glass of whiskey and his fists were ready to fucking pound his son.
I feel like his dad was dramatic enough that he like brought a chair out there and like a lamp and stood it next to him just so he could like turn the lamp on when he walked by.
Like shining up his face.
Just like, it's like, did you bring that outside? Okay.
Dude, I don't think young Charles Jr. was in the mood to notice anything. He was stupid drunk. And before he could even open his mouth to give some excuse or apologize or whatever, he was met with his father's fists, square in the jaw. And his father kept punching him until Charles was down on all fours. But his father wasn't done. He continued to kick Charles in the ribs until his body flipped into the pool. I don't know if it was the force of the kicks or if him just looking for any reprieve from the beating. But not to mention he was extremely wasted at this time as well. Mm-hmm. But regardless, Charles sank to the bottom of the pool and laid there as his father quietly walked inside, literally leaving his son to live or die.
Yeah, pull yourself up.
Yeah, and by some miracle, Charles was able to pull himself out of the pool and ended up collapsing on the cold concrete outside, and that's where he slept for the night. God. But just the fact that his dad left him in there, like you kick your drunk, now just disoriented, beaten son into a pool. He sinks to the bottom and you just walk away. Mm-hmm. Like, I know you're mad, but oh my God, dude, I can't fathom that.
That's attempted murder.
I can't fathom that.
That is beyond. Yeah, like I said, that is attempted murder. You beat him into where he almost could not function.
Yeah.
You kicked him into a pool.
Yeah.
That's attempted murder.
Right. But despite these beatings, despite the motorcycle crashes, and God knows what else happened to young Charles' brain, he was still pretty damn smart. Mm-hmm. Well, at least in terms of IQ. His IQ was 139. And, for whatever that's worth. There's a lot of debates around the IQ test nowadays, and, obviously there's lots of ways to measure someone's intelligence, but, according to this broad spectrum. And if you're unfamiliar with IQ scores and what they mean, the average is around 100. That's just your median, your mean right there, 100. Scores above 130, like his, are labeled as above average or very superior. Those are two completely different adjectives.
Above average
or very superior. That's a huge jump. I feel like above average maybe should be like 130 to 140. Yeah. And then very superior, maybe 150 and above.
Yeah, it's a little bit different
right?
Gauge there.
Yeah, exactly. While scores under 70 would be considered below average or labeled as borderline impaired. And like I said, most people's IQ falls somewhere between 85 and 115.
I think I heard that when they actually tested his IQ, it was at a pretty young age, too.
Yeah.
Like it was before he was even 18 years old. Like, he was like a young teen or something like that. And they were like, oh, you're actually really, it's pretty smart for your age, definitely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he was. He was a bright kid. But it didn't take a genius to know that he needed to get far, far away from his father. And just days after his 18th birthday, young Charles enlisted in the United States Marines in July of 1959. But surprisingly, Daddy was not happy about this.
Really? You think that would have been like a...
That's what I thought.
Wow, that's shocking.
But because his father operated like ex-military, he was not. I don't believe. I didn't find anything about him.
I didn't hear about his father
Maybe he did a
either.
4-year stint, or something like that, but I don't think so.
I don't remember hearing either.
He was a successful businessman, and he did have a lot of political ties, which we're going to talk about. Because his dad tried to use those political ties to phone, quote, some branch of the federal government, and through some political contacts of his, was actually able to reach the Marines' office, and he begged to have his son's enlistment canceled, but his request was canceled.
Denied.
Because young Charles was an adult, and, even Daddy can't save you from Uncle Sam.
I'm sorry that you're Daddy's special boy, but...
That's... I mean, also, Charles Jr. didn't want to be saved from the Marines.
Exactly, you can't make an adult
So he was
not
questioned.
do it.
They were like, well, your dad doesn't want you to enlist. He's calling, he's doing this and that. And he's like, well, I don't care. I want to go to the Marines. My dad sucks.
Yeah, it's like, is my dad your boss?
Right.
So, can I go with you?
Yeah, exactly. And you have to ask yourself, like, what is the father's motive here? It's like, did he just want to keep Charles Jr. under his wing? Or, maybe he didn't want his son turning into a killing machine and taking revenge.
Yeah, let's not give him any more proper training.
Right.
I just want to teach him how to hunt squirrels. Let's not teach him how to hunt people.
Either way, it must be a selfish endeavor. I mean,
absolutely.
This is basically, seemingly, what you were raising your son for.
Right.
And then he decides he wants to do this, and then you're like, no, you can't go to the Marines. It seems weird. It really does.
We are an Army household.
Yeah, exactly. But regardless, Charles's military career started out pretty well. He actually flourished in the military. It actually felt quite normal considering his father's impossible living standards, which he grew up with. And of course, with his hunting experience, he easily qualified as a sharpshooter.
Yeah, this guy's been in ROTC since birth.
Yeah, pretty much.
Exactly. So, yeah, he walked in just like, yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
You want to see that? No, I got it.
What's the expert sniper test? Go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and take that. That'd be great.
He just walks in, tells the drill sergeant what to do.
Yeah.
He's like, actually, we do it. At my house, we do it this way.
You need to steady your breath, sir.
Yeah, he's telling the drill sergeant, no, actually, your cuffs should be this tight. According to what my dad says,
right.
You really need to tighten those cuffs.
Yeah, you look really sloppy. But in September of 1961, he received a prestigious scholarship to the University of Texas in Austin, where he studied architectural engineering, of all things. But his main reason was so he could quickly make the rank of officer.
He's a smart guy.
That was his whole point, was, he had the qualifications to be an officer other than either education and or time in the military, right? You have to have one or the other. You can't just become an officer.
Yeah, unless you're going to like West Point and graduating through
exactly.
that.
And that's what I'm saying. That would count as education and experience at the same time. But basically that's why he's going to the university at this point. But he got a little sidetracked, as we all tend to do, right?
Yeah, college.
It's college. While there, he met a girl by the name of Kathy Leisner, a fellow student, and after just 6 months of dating, they married in the summer of 1962.
No. When I first saw her name, every time I thought it was Lesnar, and I just kept thinking, Brock Lesnar.
Brock Lesnar. It might be Lesnar, but I think it is
Lesnar, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, at the time, he wasn't even really he was interested in girls, but he wasn't looking to date anyone. And the way the book tells it is, when he saw Kathy, he was like, that's everything I want in a woman.
Yeah.
And now I want her. And,
that's how it happens. Now?
Yeah.
I can focus my attention on other things now?
Oh, that's not here? Exactly.
Oh, girl's pretty.
Right. But it was also at this time, though, if Charles ever had a chance at a normal life, this was it. This was the spot. But he fucked it up. No. Mr. Perfect fucked it up for the first time in his life. And in 1963, the college withdrew his scholarship following a quote-unquote prank, or at least that's how he described it.
Tell me about this prank, Michael.
Yeah, let me tell you. Let me see if you think it's funny, Andy.
Let's hear this prank, Sinatra.
As a joke, he claims that he shot a deer, drug it back to his dorm, and skinned it and processed it in his dorm bathroom. I mean, what's the big deal? It's hilarious.
This is
hilarious.
Where is the punchline? Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. It's
There's-
like everybody's just kind of waiting and waiting
Yeah.
and waiting, and now we just have jerky. Where was the punchline?
Right, that's it, dude. And I mean, I'm guessing they had public bathrooms too, like most dorms.
Yeah, I'm
right?
guessing he didn't have his
especially
own.
in the '60s.
Yeah, he's not having a private bathroom in his dorm.
No. Even so, that might be worse, right? People
Yeah.
come over and your bathroom's just covered in blood.
I'm just
stuck in
surprised you
deer
were able to
blood.
get it into the dorm.
Yeah,
Like, you had to bring that thing back at a weird hour for no one to be like, I don't think that's
yeah,
campus appropriate.
right. And also, I think this was just the way he tried to explain it away. You know what I mean? Like he knew that this shit wasn't legal. He knew he couldn't do this type of thing
Yeah.
at college. He was just like, oh, it was a joke.
Yeah, ha
was a
ha ha
joke,
ha. He's like,
right?
they walked in, he's covered in blood, like, ha ha ha. April Fools. It's
Got
November.
you guys.
Yeah.
Hunting season fools. But yeah, so I don't understand how that's a prank, but and no one else did either because no one found it funny. And shit like that, combined with his less than stellar grades, basically got his ass sent right on back to active military duty. So he was technically still active military while he's at the college.
Yes.
But now he has to go back to his normal duties, is
Yeah,
what
he
I'm
doesn't get to
getting
go
at.
to class anymore.
That's right. Instead, he was sent to North Carolina.
Oh,
One of our many military bases here in North Carolina. Camp Lejeune, for instance, is where he did his stay while his wife, Kathy, was left waiting in Texas.
I think I was trying to do. Oh, I've been to Fort Bragg. That's the one I've been to.
Fort Bragg, okay,
Been out
yeah,
there to
yeah.
Fort Bragg before, but never Camp Lejeune.
Right. So, I mean, in this situation, this is not good on a young couple, right? They just got married. They're working through things. Kathy is working through her degree as well as a part-time job. I think Charles had a part-time job at the same time trying to go to school, and he just fucked it up with this one misjudgment, one prank.
Yeah, prank.
Right? And now he is, how far is it to Texas? What, 12 hours?
From here?
Yeah, I think it's about 12, 16 hours. So now he's that far, 12 to 16 hours, depending on what part of North Carolina, what part of Texas, away from his new wife.
Yeah.
And, that's not going to make things better.
Not 1960s. You're not texting back and forth. You're not calling it every once in a while. Yeah.
No, this only made things worse. And, for instance, in November of the same year, he was actually court-martialed for gambling with a member of his unit and also lending money for interest and possessing a personal firearm on base. He actually threatened another Marine that owed him $15 by brandishing his .25 caliber pistol while demanding his money.
My money, man. Where's my money?
$15, man. But times were tight.
No, I heard somebody else. They were talking about the interest thing. It was like he loaned a friend like $30.
Yeah.
And then like shortly after, he's like, pay me back. And he's like, yeah. How much do I owe you? He's like, 45. He's like,
yeah.
$15. It's been 3 days.
Right.
He's like, interest. Yeah, and they were like,
He's a bitch.
that's just like the most shady shit to do.
His father was a businessman, right? His father was a businessman. But naturally, this Marine that he threatened, this other one, turned him in. And Charles didn't really try to hide or deny anything, really. During the investigation, he was found with a .25 caliber pistol and 2 rounds of 7.62 millimeter ammunition, which is standard for an M14 rifle. I don't know what you're going to do with 2 rounds, but still, you can't have it. And in court, he pleaded guilty to all charges except the charge of threatening another Marine. He just adamantly denied that. That was the threat where he flashed the pistol and apparently threatened bodily harm as well. But regardless of him denying that, he was still found guilty of all charges.
So I think I do understand the ammo thing, why you can't have that. It's I could be wrong, but I think it's because on bases, when you go and check out a weapon,
Right.
you don't get ammo from the same thing. You have to go to another place to check out your ammo for it.
Okay.
So I think that maybe it's like if he had a spare round, if he checked out a weapon, then he could fire that weapon without ever reporting that he got ammo for it. I think that's
Okay.
the thing I gathered from that. It's like if you have to get your ammo from another department. And
Okay.
So if you have your own ammo, you could easily get a gun, shoot it, and no one would know where you got the bullet.
Makes sense.
So I think that's where they were going with that.
Makes sense. Okay. Well, for punishment, he was sentenced to 30 days confinement, and whatever that means. I mean, I guess that's in jail.
In the hole, maybe?
On the base.
Solitaire, maybe?
I don't know. Maybe they have a holding cell on base in Camp Lejeune. I'm sure they do.
It's just a waiting room.
Right. And then he had 90 days of hard labor after that. And he was busted back down to private again because he had been Lance Corporal. So, and in December of 64, he was honorably discharged and returned home to his faithful wife, Kathy. And he went back to the University of Texas in Austin and everything. He chose to study mechanical engineering, but he struggled to maintain a B. It was tough for him.
I did see somebody say that. I think my favorite term was he was moderately intelligent. It was like moderately intelligent and moderately popular.
I think he was the type of person who, when everything was going well and he was succeeding, there was nobody better. But one gut punch,
and everything just kind of comes.
His confidence is, it's built on sticks.
Okay,
you know what I'm saying? I feel like that. You take one out,
just a house of cards.
The whole house falls, man. And also, upon his return, Kathy had already graduated and was now teaching at Lanier High School in Austin full-time and holding down a side job to help support the young couple's finances during that time, including bearing the costs of Charles' tuition because, the military wasn't footing the bill anymore.
Exactly, yeah.
He's not part of the military anymore. And this irked Charles to every degree because he hated this. He felt worthless. He felt like he was, he was the exact opposite of what his father raised him to be. You know what I'm saying? He's completely relying on his wife. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but in 1961, raised the way he was, you could see how this could irritate him.
Now, was the military? He did get a paycheck from the military at this time, correct? He's still in active duty.
No, This is after he's discharged.
Okay, so this is after the discharge.
Honorable discharge.
So he doesn't have any source of income at this point, correct?
None.
Okay.
None. Not until a short bit later, where he does start working as a bill collector for a finance company, and then he took on a second job as a bank teller in Austin National Bank. Yeah, he wasn't going to just let her do everything. He just
too prideful.
But what the irony of it is, though, when he also takes on two jobs, it's like, well, now you never see each other.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, now you're putting all the stress on your relationship, whereas before, it was just on your conscience or your self-esteem or whatever it was. Now you're literally spending more time apart. But, I mean, they just got through a long-distance relationship, so maybe...
He may have been more used to being apart.
Yeah,
so it's like that's kind of what they were comfortable with at this point.
That's true.
Could be.
Right. And, of course, working at the bank and the finance company, it wasn't the work that he wanted, but it did make him feel like he was pulling his weight and that things were decent. And I say decent because even though Charles had been given yet another chance at education and an amazingly supportive wife, he couldn't help but start to notice flashes of his father's anger in himself, eventually manifesting itself when Charles hit Kathy for the very first time. Just one of many dominoes to fall around this time period in Charlie's life. The second big domino here was the divorce of his parents.
Oh, that only took, 20 years?
Yeah.
After watching his father just beat the shit out of him for
it's like, how long is she supposed to take it? But she had no out. Now, Charles and his wife are at a point, at least apparently they were, that they could help her financially and move her away from him. So maybe that's what she was waiting for. She was waiting for one of her boys to get to the point where they could take care of her and she wouldn't be completely alone. Because, I mean, you're talking about a woman who's she's been a homemaker her whole life.
And she's also been beaten
she has
openly
for
the past 20-something years.
Exactly. So she couldn't get a job. She couldn't get any hobbies. Like, she had to make sure that everything around the house was done to a T, or she was beat. I mean, simple as that.
She probably wanted one of her sons to protect her.
Yeah.
So, especially the eldest,
exactly.
being Charles.
Exactly. And in 1966, Charles' mother announced that she was officially leaving his father. So he drove to Florida, loaded up his mother, and brought her back to Austin. He had her set up with an apartment and a job as a cafeteria worker, like, damn near immediately.
That's pretty good. Like, to just, all right, come on, I got you. I got you ready to go.
Yeah. And lucky for the whole family, old dad, he stayed in Florida because he had a plumbing company to run. So, he got his priorities in line. But Charles Sr., he wasn't out of their lives because he called several times a week, asking Charles Jr. to convince his mother to come back and give their marriage another try. Here's a quote from Charles Sr. This is you want to read it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead.
Give me something to do.
Be Charles Sr.
I'm not ashamed of the fact that I spent $1,000 a month on the phone bill, begging her to come back. I loved my wife dearly, and my sons dearly. I wanted our home to be a happy one. I kept begging Charlie to come back to me. I promised him that if he'd only persuade his mama to come back, I swear to never lay another hand on her again.
Yeah, right, man. And luckily, Charlie refused, because that is obviously bullshit. I mean, if you've hit her for 26 years, buddy, you are going to keep hitting her.
And you openly just say, it's because I have a bit of a temper.
Yeah, well, you're going to get mad again.
Yeah,
So
I'm sorry. Did you just fix that?
yeah, it's crazy. So that same year, though, Charles started a daily journal where he wrote openly and honestly about his depression, his violence toward his wife, and how he dreaded turning into his father. Not knowing where to turn with these dark thoughts swimming around in his head, he met with the university's doctor, who basically just prescribed him Valium, and gave him a referral to the campus psychiatrist, Maurice Dean Hurley.
It was a pretty common thing back then. Just like, oh, here's a Valium.
It's the 1960s. Mental health. What the fuck is that?
Yeah, take this pill, chill the fuck out.
Yeah, exactly. You're just stressed out. This will bring your vitals down.
Yeah,
you're
take
good.
12. I don't care.
Yeah, whatever. Drink some whiskey. Stop and get you some Jack Daniels
You
on
want
the way
some
home.
now? Here you go.
Yeah, I actually prescribe it with whiskey.
No.
But you have to remember, Charles was raised thinking that if you needed a shrink, it was a sign of weakness. But eventually, he did meet with Dr. Hurley on March 29, 1966, and spent the hour talking about his parents' divorce, his increasing stress at work and school, and his mounting financial debt. Now, an interesting takeaway from the meeting, at one point he said that he had an urge to, quote, start shooting people with a deer rifle from the university tower, end quote. That's damn specific.
Are you a medium? Can you see into the future?
That is damn specific. I mean, and now as crazy as that statement seems, in hindsight, obviously, in the moment, Dr. Hurley really had no reason to panic because, in all honesty, students came to him all the time talking about throwing themselves from the tower, shooting from the tower, or at least that's the way the Ryan Green book made it sound, and I don't know why you would lie about that. And also, the tower is a fixation point of the campus. It is like
the center point.
It's the center point. It's their pride and joy. They built it like that for a reason. It's baffling. And at the time in the 60s, anyone could go up there for any reason. You could go up there and read a book if you want to. You just go hang out all day, whatever you want to do.
Exactly. The rules back then were amazing.
What rules?
Exactly.
But then you have issues like this. So yeah, the tower was a fixation point, and I'm sure it still is. Until now.
After this, now definitely.
The security is much different. We'll talk about that too.
You mean there is security now?
There's a shit ton of it.
The security is different. There is some now.
Right. But either way, after that initial visit, Charlie never came back. Though Dr. Hurley did urge him to. In his notes, he described Whitman as oozing with hostility.
That's a great note to have in the sides.
Oozing with hostility. He is hostile.
Oozing with hostility.
Oozing with it. But Charles apparently wasn't very impressed with his meeting with Hurley because in his suicide note, he said it was, quote, to no avail.
He wanted somebody to fix it the first time.
That's right. I can't be fixed in an hour? He's like fucking Tony Soprano. I'm not getting any better, huh? It's your fault.
Yeah, exactly. He showed up thinking probably the same thing. Oh, you're going to give me a pill that makes all this go away, and then I'm going to be better. Because the first doctor, like I said, just gave him Valium, and you were like, bye, just get the fuck out of here. Now he's going to an actual shrink and hoping that they're just like, oh yeah, this is the pill you need this time.
Yeah. And also around this time, he met someone from his past. Now, whether this person found him at this very troublesome time in his life, or maybe he reached out. I tend to think he reached out. Because this is his childhood priest and Boy Scout leader. Seriously, I can't make that shit up.
Okay.
I'm not going to touch it.
Thankfully, you're not.
We're hard on Catholics, so apparently. So we're gonna take it easy. But Father Leduc came to visit Charles, and Charles confessed that he had lost his faith and no longer considered himself Catholic at all. And that was basically Charles' last public cry for help before he decided that there was no other option than to act out his horrific fantasy. Now, before we get into the attack, something just occurred to me. Maybe Father Leduc did just show up at that time. Because why would Charles call him out of the blue and then say, oh, by the way, I'm not a Catholic anymore. I lost my faith. Or maybe he would. Maybe it is a reaching out. It's like, save me. Do you have anything to say about do you have anything to say that can bring me back, that can restore my faith in humanity and in God?
Myself, my
if
mental
not,
state. Yeah,
because if not, I don't believe anymore. I'm not even a Catholic.
Because he's already gone to the doctor now, and he thinks that's to no avail.
Yeah.
So now he's reaching out to the old source of his comfort, which was his mother's Roman Catholic religion.
Right.
Which he was raised in, and he's hoping for one last. This is my last resort.
Yes.
I'm call my old priest, who I was, he was an altar boy back in the day. He was a Boy Scout with this guy. This guy was a big influence in his life. Maybe we don't know their whole relationship, but yeah, he probably was like, this is the closest thing to a father figure I have.
Yeah.
Who's not my abusive father.
And like I said, this man was involved in Boy Scouts as well as in the local church. So Charles spent a lot of time with them.
Yeah, him and his brothers were altar boys at that church. So
yeah, absolutely.
It does make sense for just him to kind of reach out one last time.
It does. Well, that's all he could do, I guess. And I guess now we have to get into the attack. So listener discretion is advised at this point, guys. There is violence, a lot of it. And I do have some scenes, some descriptive scenes of murders, some certain killings. So just be aware there is also a child in the womb who was killed in this story.
Mm-hmm. This is random violence on anybody he could see. So.
Pretty much. So the day before the attack, Charles went to a local hardware store and purchased binoculars and a knife. He then picked up his wife from her summer job, and the pair went to a matinee movie. After that, they met Charles' mother for lunch at her job.
I always thought the first purchase he made was kind of strange, because it felt like those were things he would already have. As a former Marine, as a former who's been through military training and kind of grew up in Texas and stuff, it's like he doesn't own his knife or
maybe they were government issued and he had to return them.
That's what I was thinking. It seemed like those things were things that he would already have.
An outdoorsman,
he's already got the gun. He's already a hunter.
Yeah.
It's like, did you just want new ones, just to make sure that I don't know? It's just a weird thing to go. I'm going to go buy new ones.
Yeah, maybe he just wanted a nice sharp knife. He didn't want to waste time. He didn't have time really to sharpen anything.
True.
And then maybe he didn't have any good binoculars. Who knows? But either way, later that evening they visited with friends for dinner, and after leaving, Kathy headed to her second job where she worked from 6 to 10 p.m. Now, once back home alone, Charles sat at his typewriter and started writing his suicide note. Andy, you want to read this snippet from the suicide note here?
Sure thing, Michael, I do. I don't quite understand what it is that compels me to type this letter. Perhaps it is to leave some vague reason for the actions I have recently performed. I do not really understand myself these days. I am supposed to be an average, reasonable, intelligent young man. However, lately, I have been the victim of many unusual and irrational thoughts.
And then this other little bit here.
I intend to kill Kathy. I love her very much, and I intend to kill my wife after I pick her up from work. I don't want her to face the embarrassment that my actions will surely cause, and I am prepared to die.
Strange. It's so matter of fact.
It is. I intend to kill her.
I intend to kill Kathy. Her. I intend to kill my wife, though. It's like I love her very much, but I intend to kill my wife when I pick her up after work. It's just like the little specific things that he puts in there just makes it so nonchalant. And that's just, like I said, we'll talk more about his mental state later. So basically, he drove into town, picked up Kathy at the telephone office where she worked. He took her home, dropped her off, and then headed back out for a quick visit to his mother's. So his mother is victim number 1. When Charles entered his mother's apartment, she was in her room getting ready for bed. Charles approached her, and before she could speak, he had already swung his fist, actually just missing his mother as she ducked out of the way. Remember, this woman has spent a lifetime dodging punches.
Oh, okay? Yeah, she just what?
Right.
What?
But unfortunately, she was not quite fast enough, and the next hard right hook struck Margaret and sent her crashing to the floor. Then, with another quick blow, Charles plants a knife in his mother's chest. And as she lay on the floor gasping for air, he takes out his .25 caliber pistol and shoots her in the back of the head to end her suffering.
That's something new. I didn't actually, the information I heard didn't actually say that he shot his mother.
He did.
It said that he had just stabbed her in the heart and then laid her in bed. It kind of left out.
He did that to his wife.
Yeah, it just left out the gunshot to his mother. Because it said for his wife as well, but for his mother, it just said one knife to the heart and then laid her in bed. It's weird that the research I found didn't have that.
No, because even in the police report that the police filed the following day, they noted that she had been stabbed through the heart and shot in the back of the head.
Yeah, he made sure.
Reports also said that she had defensive wounds to her left hand, which is very typical when you're being attacked by someone right-handed.
Yeah.
So And then Charles took the time to write a letter by hand while at his mother's house and left it for the police.
To whom it may concern, I have just taken my mother's life, and I am very upset over having done it. However, I feel there is a heaven. She is definitely there now. If there is a heaven, she is definitely there now. I truly am sorry. Let there be no doubt in your mind that I loved this woman with all my heart.
Yeah,
it doesn't make it's a weird thing. It's hard to wrap your head around.
It really is, dude. And it's also weird that he chose to write about these two murders and he says nothing about his attack at the university.
The only thing he says,
it's like he's completely disconnected from those attacks.
The only other thing he mentions is because of my actions, but he doesn't say what he's going to do. He just says because of my actions,
right? There's
my
nothing.
Following
Yeah,
actions.
There's nothing specific at all.
It's like maybe he didn't want somebody to find this note before he got up there, or I don't know. But yeah, he doesn't ever actually give what he's going to do.
No, he doesn't. But after writing this note, he returns home to his wife, Kathy. And that is where she was laying in bed. She was sleeping. He literally came up to her and plunged a knife directly into her heart. Some reports say up to 5 times as she was sleeping. She never even opened her eyes. Yeah. And that was his intention. He wanted to kill her as soon as possible.
As quickly,
as painless as possible. Like I said, her eyes didn't even open. And he wrapped her body up in sheets to preserve her dignity for the police to find, because a lot of reports said that she was sleeping in the nude. Mm-hmm. So he wrapped her body up in sheets, laid her back in bed, and then added a handwritten portion to the note that he had typed up earlier.
Yeah, because somebody said he didn't finish what he had been typing, so he just kind of just pulled it off and kept writing instead of just typing it. But
yeah.
This is the handwritten part. I imagine it appears that I brutally killed both of my loved ones. I was only trying to do a quick and thorough job. If my life insurance policy is valid, please pay off my debts. Donate the rest anonymously to the Mental Health Foundation. Maybe the research can prevent further tragedies of this type. That is so matter-of-factly just to include, if my insurance policy covers this, dude, you just killed 2 women, and you're putting this in like it's a bureaucratic, complaint letter.
Yes.
It's if my insurance policy, does this cover this?
That's where his logical mind is at this time.
Does this cover homicide by me?
Yeah, and at the bottom of the letter, in a weird one-liner, he writes, "Wife and mother both dead." Almost like he's saying it to himself.
Yeah, almost like a checklist.
Yeah, yes, it is.
He's checking off the first thing he needed to do.
Yes. He also left notes to each of his brothers and his father, where he gave instructions regarding 2 canisters of film that he left on the table to be developed, and that his puppy should be given to Kathy's parents.
Thanks for sparing the dog, I guess.
Yeah, he didn't even like the dog either.
Yeah,
he couldn't stand the dog.
But he did it because he knew his wife loved the dog, and her parents would love it.
Yeah. Well, her parents also loved her.
Yeah,
fucking asshole. A lot more than the dog. He also thought ahead for the next day to buy himself some more time. He called Kathy's job to inform her supervisor that Kathy would be staying home sick the following day, and he made the exact same call to his mother's employer a few hours later. And the next morning, on July 31st, 1966, it was that dreadful morning. It was hot, with a high of 98 degrees in Austin, Texas.
Damn!
They sweating like a mofo out there.
That's one of those things. It's very hard to kind of prove the insanity thing when you're making these calls ahead to try and cover your tracks to make sure you get more time.
He's not insane. He just doesn't know why he's taking these actions.
Yeah, it's that's one of the things they have consistently tried to study, because it's not insanity. It's just a man who broke.
Yeah. Yes. And around 9:15 in the morning, Charles rented a dolly and cashed a check for $250. With cash in hand, he headed back to the local hardware store that he had stopped at earlier and bought an M1 carbine rifle, claiming he was using the gun to shoot some pigs. And this wasn't alarming to the Texas gun store owner. For one, it's Texas. And as many Austin area hunters, they like to hunt wild pigs, and it was encouraged even.
Exactly.
Like most places, wild hogs are a nuisance. And so, the hunting of wild hogs is encouraged.
Yeah, and
so
if somebody comes in,
and if somebody comes in like, "Oh, I'm going to hunt wild hogs," then that hardware store guy's trying to, set him up with whatever he needs. Yeah.
You know what? You need some night vision goggles. Right. Don't get this. This is a hollow point. It's going to blow that son of a bitch's head right off. Why don't you bring me back some bacon, all right? Why don't you? Yeah, they do not fuck around with wild hogs.
Right. I recommend a ghillie suit and maybe some hog urine.
You know what? I recommend an RPG. We have a tank out back.
Seriously. But after Charles left the hardware store, then he stopped at Sears. Because where else do you buy shit than Sears and Roebuck in the 60s, right?
Yeah.
I swear to God, my grandparents, they say everything was purchased at Sears and Roebuck. Oh, yeah, I remember when those were in Sears and Roebuck.
It was the
You know,
catalog.
the
Sears
catalog,
and Roebuck's
right?
catalog. Yeah, man, that was the Amazon mailing list of the day.
It was. And at Sears and Roebuck, he purchased a 12-gauge shotgun and a rifle case. Whitman immediately began not at the store, obviously.
Yeah.
Thank you. Whitman began sawing the stock off the shotgun, then loaded it and the M1 into a bag that also contained his Remington 700 bolt-action hunting rifle, a 6mm Remington rifle, 3 pistols, several knives, steel rebar, a can of gasoline, over 500 rounds of ammunition, and other various equipment that he thought he might need. And, important fact here, all his guns were legally owned, by the way, except for the sawed-off shotgun. And the shotgun was legally owned, he just did an illegal modification.
Yeah. This was the other thing I was worried. I was questioning. It's like in his bag that he brought up there, he had several knives.
Yeah.
It's like, why did he go to the store and buy a new knife and new binoculars only to go and then use that knife to kill them? It's so strange to me that he had everything he needed, but he still was like, I gotta go buy this so I can kill them with a new knife.
I think he was just prepared for a long standoff. He really thought that he was going to be up there so long that he was going to run out of ammo and he was going to have to start, guerrilla warfare and these motherfuckers that were coming up one at a time. And he was prepared to do that, I think. He was totally prepared to do that, which we'll find out. He sees this plan through. That is one thing you can say, I guess. And now it's time to put this said plan into action. So he used the dolly he rented to haul the equipment to the top of the tower, and dressed as a maintenance worker, he slipped right by the smiling receptionist on the lower level. Then once 30 floors up, at the top of the stairs to the observation deck, there was another receptionist named Edna Townsley. She was 51 years old. Charles walks up to her and knocks her unconscious with the butt of a rifle, and then immediately restrained her, dragging her behind a couch to conceal her body. Then he shot her in the head and left her to die, which would end up taking 2 hours.
Again,
the whole rampage happens and everything before she dies.
Mm-hmm. None of, like I said, the steps he's taking now, they just don't make sense. Like, if you're going to knock her out, tie her up, gag her, drag her somewhere else, and then shoot her. It's like what did his brain go through? It's like did she like wake up or something and he's like just freaked out and shot her?
Right.
Because that's the only thing I could think. It's like it looks like he went through the stages to not kill this woman.
Right.
And then he still kills her.
I think he was thinking as logical as possible because I think he was needing to barricade a door, right? He has to kill this person anyways in his mind. So he's going to kill her and then use her body as another weight
obstacle
in front of the door, right? And if you shoot her where she's at, now you have to drag dead weight. Mm-hmm. You bump her with the butt of a rifle and tell her to get over there.
But he did.
You see what I'm saying?
But the thing, he knocked her unconscious, restrained her, and then drug her over there.
Yeah,
so it's like that's why I'm wondering. It's like I think maybe it feels to me like he wasn't going to kill this woman, and that possibly she woke back up when he was dragging her. Yeah, and then maybe he shot her.
Yes,
because it just seems like this is the only person that he actually went through a few steps to not murder.
Right,
and it didn't make any sense. Also, with just him showing up as a maintenance worker, I questioned that at first, and then I realized this is the '60s. He just had a tool belt on. That's all you needed.
Right.
There's no jumpsuit. There's no name. It's just tool belt.
Just tool belt.
That's all you needed.
That's all you needed. Yep. And look decent, which he did.
Had duffel bag, dolly and a tool belt.
Yeah, and he looked completely trustworthy, for the time. Clean cut, clean shaven, whatnot. But like I said, now that he was alone at the top, he needed to barricade himself in. But just then, the elevators opened, and 2 tourist families came up the stairs. Man, talk about wrong place, wrong time, dude. Mm-hmm. The Gabor family and the Lamports were both headed up to check out the view when they encountered Whitman. Charlie smiled and nodded, and then opened fire on the group, killing 15-year-old Mark Gabor and his 45-year-old aunt, Marguerite Lamport. So these 2 families knew each other. He continued to fire as the families fled back down the stairs. The 2 mentioned before were killed instantly, and 2 more of the group were left permanently disabled from their wounds. But now that he was alone at last, Charles barricaded the door and set up camp as he took aim at the campus below.
I had a question about the first people he did shoot up there.
I'll try to answer it.
Two of them were killed instantly, and the others were injured. Did they make it back down, or were they like stuck on the stairs?
They made it down as far as they could.
Okay.
They were on some type of landing, but I think what they eventually figured out is the surviving family members thought it better to just stay with their injured family members instead of going out, because think about it. He has a 360 degree. You can't run out the bottom of the tower.
Oh, he can look right down.
Exactly. So at least by going down the tower a couple floors, you know he's above you. You know where he's at, and he can't see you.
Yeah,
or
you know where he's going to come if he has to come down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they set up camp somewhere in the tower. It may have been in the lobby. It may have been the bottom floor. I'm not sure.
I was confused about that, whether or not they actually made it all the way down or not.
But also most of the family members between those two were injured in some way.
Yeah.
Exactly. There may have been one or two who weren't injured at all. Mm-hmm. So, but now that he's up in the tower, like I said, he's taking aim at the campus below, and the first shot rang out at approximately 11:48 a.m. The chime of the high noon bell just above his head helped confuse people and hide the shots as they conveniently rang out.
He literally timed it.
He timed it.
Yeah.
He timed it with the clock.
The chimes.
And the first call to 911 came in at 11:52 a.m. by a history professor after he witnessed several students who had been shot in the South Mall Gathering Center. I guess this is a certain area of campus, and this area is very exposed. If you're in the South Mall area of it, then you're basically in a giant open courtyard, and a lot of victims
fish in
were
a barrel,
killed
so
there.
to speak.
Pretty much. There was nowhere to hide.
Pardon that expression, but that's literally what it was for him at that point, when they're just in an open courtyard
Pretty
with
much.
buildings on all the sides that they have to try and get into.
Yes.
So, yeah.
One witness recalled watching as a victim that had been struck in the groin teetered off his bike and then ultimately crashed. This had been 17-year-old Alec Hernandez, who was delivering newspapers around campus. The witness was somewhat amused by it at first, thinking that Alec had just had an accident, but then he said people started falling, and he knew that this was no laughing matter. When everyone began to realize that it was rifle shots they heard, panic truly began to set in. Mm-hmm. And Whitman shot without discretion, targeting anyone and everyone he could. If they caught his attention, he fired at them. He didn't care about gender nor age.
Any open target he could see.
That's right.
Open game. It was awful.
Yep. And as I alluded to earlier, his youngest victim hadn't even been born yet. 18-year-old Claire Wilson was only 8 months pregnant when a bullet ripped through her lower abdomen and shattered her child's skull. Claire somehow miraculously survived, but would end up being infertile for the rest of her life. Like, this is insane. Obviously, I mean, I don't know if he was aiming for her stomach. I think he probably was. I mean, when a woman is 8 months pregnant, that's very apparent.
Yeah. That
is very apparent. I know people carry weight differently. People have different starting weights and whatnot. But I'm 18 years old. Like,
I feel like
up, man.
There's a part of me that does think that's what he was aiming for, and there's a part of me that just that kind of hopes that, he had never been up this high before shooting at targets, that maybe those bullets just dropped a little bit, because, like, the first guy got shot in the groin. It's like maybe he was aiming for the chest.
No, he's shooting for arteries.
Well, but that guy's on a bike, so he's riding a bike, and it's like, it seems like maybe you're shooting for the chest, and because he's moving, you missed a little bit. So
I don't think he missed it all, dude, because all his shots were in arteries. Even people he shot, he just shot at whatever he had a clean shot at.
Mm-hmm. I believe that, too. It's just like a part of me wants to kind of hope that maybe he was trying to aim for the chest and the bullet just dropped.
This is a weird thing to have to diagnose, okay? But maybe from a logical standpoint, the person on the bike, right, aiming at the seat of the bike is a lot easier because that doesn't change heights. It doesn't lean back and forth. While you're riding a bike, your body moves, your torso moves, your head moves, but your freaking pelvis does not.
True.
It stays in the same spot. So all he had to do was time it as far as shooting right ahead, right in front of this bike. So I think from a military standpoint, he's thinking, I got a much better chance at hitting a pelvis artery than I do anywhere else because this person's moving. Depending on, like I say, when you bike and you're really getting it, you're kind of moving back and forth a lot.
Yeah, probably.
Honestly. So, but Claire Wilson was shot in the stomach, like we said. Her unborn child was killed instantly, and she would be infertile for the rest of her life. Her friend, Thomas Ekman, who was walking beside her, had been accompanying her across the South Mall area that day. He was not so lucky. After shooting Claire, Charles quickly turned his gun to Thomas and shot and killed him instantly. I'm assuming that was a head wound. I couldn't see anything else, but I mean, what else do you instantly die from? So most of the victims that day were killed with a 16mm Remington rifle with a 4-power scope, which is a weapon and sight configuration that would allow even a moderate marksman to hit a target the size of a human head at 300 yards away.
Yeah, that is a powerful scope right there that he is using.
Very, very. So obviously, by this point, the police were fully aware of the situation, and all active police officers in Austin were ordered to the campus. They were joined by highway patrolmen, Texas Rangers, and even Secret Service men from the Lyndon Johnson Austin office, believe it or not.
Oh, I believe it at this point, because
this is crazy.
This is the first time they've ever encountered something like this.
That's right. And there were even civilians who showed up with personal firearms to try and assist the police. I mean, this is Texas, after all.
Oh, yeah.
Don't get it twisted. They're like, finally, the disaster I want to protect my town from.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who are just ready.
They were ready.
Or at least they are now.
And thank God they showed up, honestly. Because one of the volunteers makes a huge difference. The officer who is credited with taking down Charles said in his book that he thinks the civil shooters should be credited, as they increased the chance of Whitman being hit and caused him to take cover more often. So,
yeah, exactly. And they kept him pinned down.
That's right, exactly. And although Charles was moving often, utilizing narrow drainage ducts at gunpoints, it made him virtually impossible to hit from below. Now, the first officer on scene, 23-year-old patrolman Billy Speed. When he got there, he took cover behind some stone columns, but not quick enough apparently, as he was struck in the shoulder and ended up dying from his injuries. And he's waiting for the police. That is he's thinking at this time, like, yeah, I'm sure he's enjoying himself, whatever the fuck these psycho killers do when they're in this massacre. But when the police show up, he's like, okay, finally, someone worthy.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? He's like, this is where you begin to make your stand.
It's easier to justify killing them.
That's what I'm saying. So the first officer on the scene, especially arriving alone, you have no chance. He can see 360 degrees, miles
you can't see him.
out. He sees you coming into the campus. He's already moved in position, and when you get out of your car, he's shooting you. I mean,
exactly. Yeah, you had no chance. I felt so bad too, because that guy has such a great cop name. Officer Billy Speed,
right?
It's such a great cop name.
He sounds like
Billy Speed.
He sounds like a superhero.
It sounds like a Keanu Reeves character.
It's like a superhero's real name.
Yeah, Billy Speed. Yeah, it does.
Right. But the police, they decided they'd try a different tactic. So they tried to use a small airplane to take down Whitman. In the plane was a sharpshooter and police lieutenant Marion Lee. They hoped to get a clear shot at him from the sky, but they quickly came under fire and were forced to retreat when Charles sunk 4 shots into the plane's fuselage almost immediately.
Yeah, this isn't a military transport or something like that. It's just a local plane.
Like, that was so easy for him to hit. Like, yeah. One of the most difficult things about this attack was that it made it very difficult to even try to assist the injured. No one within the sight of the tower was safe. Morris Holman experienced this firsthand. He was the driver of an ambulance that had responded to the shootings. While attempting to help another victim in the South Mall area, like we talked about earlier, he was shot in the leg, the bullet striking his artery again. Luckily, Morris was rushed to the local ER in need of a blood transfusion, and maybe the only bright spot in the story, this is when people started hearing about the shooting, and they jumped into action. And not just with the guns.
Yeah.
All the local blood banks had lines around the corner. But
if I'm not mistaken, too, you may get to this, too, but it's like you talked about having to try and help the injured. Mm-hmm. He's using the injured to lure people out. He's trying to get more people out there, so they know that if anybody who's still alive out there, he's keeping an eye on them. So that because he knows someone else is going to come get them.
It's terrifying, dude. It's an absolutely terrifying experience. You're walking with a friend, you're walking with a loved one, they go down, and you literally don't have time to even get to safety yourself, much less pull their body out of harm's way.
Yep.
Or them out of harm's way if they're not dead.
Yep.
You know, like this paramedic, he lived. He was lucky.
The pregnant woman, she survived. She was shot in the stomach right there on the South Yard, and her friend was shot and killed next to her.
Yep.
So then she's just laying there in the open. So
yeah, I mean, and there were stories of some victims who they were smart. They thought on their feet, or laying down rather, and they didn't move. They were shot. They were not killed, and they just laid there.
just played dead.
They just played dead. It was, I mean, that's about the best thing you could do in this situation, honestly.
It is. In a lot of those situations like that, in those
Yeah.
active shooter situations, it's a strategy.
Yep.
Like it's a way to survive.
Absolutely. But of course, with more community action, like the blood drives, comes more awareness. And with the rise in awareness comes increased pressure on the police to stop this sumbitch. So somebody was going to have to get their ass up the tower.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody's going up there, goddammit.
I'm surprised
I mean-
Texas didn't just surround this tower with like guns and just be like, just take it out.
Just take out the whole tower.
Just take out the tower.
Just cut it off.
Just gunship. Just,
Yeah, right. Just cut it right in half. But it was finally decided that 4 men were to head up to the observation deck and apprehend Charles by any means necessary. They made their way to the tower by zigzagging from cover to cover and using underground conduits that only the custodial staff knew about. That was really interesting because the officers were going around to like teaching staff, people who worked, in the cafeteria, and all these different workers in the school, groundskeepers, and nobody knew anything except for the custodial staff.
yeah, janitor's like, I got to
Ask
wait.
the janitor. They got a place where they go hide when they ain't got shit to do. Go ask them.
There's a janitor's like, I don't want to show you this spot, but I think I got to show you this spot.
I think I gotta show you this spot.
I think I got to show you my spot.
Take your shoes off before you come in.
Why don't you guys, okay, before you guys come through, I got to
Yeah.
clean up a little bit and just like hide a bunch of weed.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, all right, now you guys can come through.
Exactly. But yeah, apparently there were tunnels all over the campus. And they were dug in the 1920s upon the creation of the college, upon the construction of the college. So they're still there, and they've actually been redone, I think, in the 70s. In the 70s, I think they were kind of updated as far as structurally. And of course, they've probably been updated as far as electricity and whatnot now. But anyway, the 4 lucky tributes were Officer Ramiro Martinez, Houston McCoy, Jerry Day, and 1 civilian who they hastily deputized named Alan Crum. Now, Crum was an employee of the college and a former Air Force tail gunner. So he was, he probably knew his way around a gun.
Yeah, I mean, anybody who has former military experience, yes.
Yeah,
So-
yeah, they feel comfortable in that situation. So as the 4 made their way up the tower, they first came across the 2 families. This is what you were talking about earlier. The Gabor family and the Lamport family, who had been shot initially by Whitman when he barricaded the observation deck. Several of them were already dead, and most of them were injured. But Jerry Day jumped into action and began caring for the victims as his colleagues pushed on. When the other 3 reached the top, they were able to push back the barricade enough to slip into the reception area. Using radios, they communicated with officers about Whitman's position on the deck. Martinez and McCroy, equipped with a .38 revolver and a shotgun, snuck out onto the deck as Crum snuck around the opposite side of the tower.
At this
Now-
point, aren't the other people kind of steadily keeping him pinned down right now? They're trying to use the radios to like, where is he at so we can come in? Is that what I'm trying to get? I thought.
Kind of. The people in the tower are really the only ones that know where he is because he's just sticking his gun out through vents. So unless they see the gun come out or whatever, then they really don't know where he's at. And
Okay.
he was constantly moving around. So it's like by the time they radioed up there, he might be in a different corner.
Gotcha.
But at this point, they had come in through one corner, okay? They came into the reception at one corner. And then basically you have a square up top, right? The 2 officers, McCoy and Martinez, they go one way. And then Crum goes the other way, okay? They each reach the next corners. So they know he's not in these corners. He's not in the corner we came in at. There's only
spot.
one corner left, right? So that was going to be the hard part. Somebody has to make a move. And surely Whitman knows the officers are up there with him, and they know that he could be around the very next corner, or he is around the next corner, rather. And finally, the tension is broken when Crum fires a shot that draws Whitman's attention to his side of the deck, allowing McCoy and Martinez to come up from the other side behind him with clear shots. Now, this is really funny, okay, because like you watch some interviews with Crum, and when I watched him, he looks very reserved. He looks almost embarrassed to be part of this. And I thought, man, what does he have to be embarrassed about, right? What could he... And then I found a few articles. It didn't mention it this way in the book. I guess Ryan Green didn't want to portray him this way, but it's pretty common knowledge that Crumb fired on accident.
He just slipped.
He jumped out to make a move. He did do the brave thing. He was like, fuck it, and he jumped around the corner. But he almost dropped his rifle, and when it slipped out of his hand, he grabbed the trigger, and then shot through the roof of the tower.
Nice.
Yes.
And
then
I helped.
Yeah. I helped?
Yeah.
It's been a while since he's been a tail gunner, okay?
Yeah,
Give him a break. He's been retired for a few years. But either way, it worked. It worked, okay? Because it gave McCoy and Martinez clear shots. Martinez comes around the corner, fires first, emptying his 6-shot revolver, but only striking Charles once in the ribs. And it didn't even slow him down. I don't know how he missed all.
Just come around blind, just
right?
eyes closed.
1 out of 6, man. Hey, there's a lot of tension. But lucky for Martinez, McCoy was there, and he was standing by with a shotgun. He immediately fired 2 blasts in Charles' direction, hitting him both times. Once in the chest and once in the face. No joke. The shells hit him so hard that it threw him back against the tower wall. But here's one of the craziest things that happened in this case. Charles, missing half of his face, bleeding from his abdomen, and coughing up blood, continued to raise his rifle to take aim at the officers. And Martinez was like, oh, hell no.
Oh, no.
Fuck this. He grabbed the shotgun from McCoy and just rushed Whitman and shot him in the face, point blank, and it was over.
Yeah, that's the whole
It was
scream
over.
thing. The
That's
killer always comes back with, nope, bam.
Yep, double tap, baby.
Nope, yeah.
Zombieland. Double tap, rule number 2 or whatever. But so it was over. But only the officers in the tower knew of this, and they quickly realized that their lives were still in danger when shots from below continued ripping through the tower walls. So they tried to radio, but remember, not everyone had a radio because not everyone was police.
Yeah, it's a bunch of random people.
There's a
out
bunch
there.
of civilians with guns out there, and they were not in contact with police. Of course, and they were just down there using the tower for target practice. So Crumb grabbed a white towel. Crumb thought fast on his feet. Crumb's a man of action. You got to give it to him.
I gotta do something now.
He might be fumbling action, but he's a man of action. He grabbed a white towel out of Whitman's bag and waved it out the side of the deck to signal to the men below that it was indeed over. Ray Martinez and Houston McCoy were both credited with Charles Whitman's death. And honestly, I think Crumb deserves an honorable mention for the distraction shot, right?
Yeah.
Regardless. I mean, accident or not, he jumped around the corner and showed himself first.
He went up there with those
That
men
takes
and was
balls,
prepared
bro.
to do it. Like, he still tried.
He was prepared to die, apparently. 2 officers didn't freaking initiate it first. And he did. So, I mean, the man deserves to be honored for that sense.
Because you helped, but you helped.
Exactly. And when all was said and done, Whitman had killed 16 people in total and wounded 32 others. So at this point in the show, let's take a minute and let's mention each of the victims, starting with his own mother, Margaret Whitman, his wife, Kathy Whitman, Edna Townsley, Marguerite Lamport, Mark Gabor, Thomas Ekman, Robert Boyer, Thomas Ashton, Thomas Carr, Billy Speed, Harry Walchuk, Paul Sontag, Claudia Rutt, Roy Schmidt, Karen Griffith, David Grumby, and of course, Claire Wilson's unborn child.
Yeah, and one of those, I think one of the later ones you said, that Karen Griffin, she died after a week in the hospital.
Oh,
Yeah,
David Gumby died after 30 years. Because he finally took himself off dialysis, which we'll talk about that a little bit more. In one of his notes, Charles asked to be cremated, but this request was not respected because fuck him. That's why.
Because fuck you.
Because fuck him. Exactly.
We're putting you in a garbage disposal.
But instead, Whitman and his mother shared an awkward funeral service where his coffin was draped with a flag, because he was a veteran. I don't know how I feel about that, dude.
Yeah, it's like
you are sharing a funeral with your mother, but you killed your mother, and your family's gonna come to this, and then also we're honoring you, like we're giving you the salute and all this shit, and you get a flag on your coffin. Like, no, I don't think so.
I feel like that should be like
I don't
that
think
gets
so.
striked. You get your military service is striked. If you then take like your military training to go murder a bunch of innocent people,
Right.
you don't get to have a military funeral.
I don't think so, man.
Yeah, it's like, no, it doesn't matter if you helped us out doing anything else.
Nah.
You went and fucking shot a bunch of civilians.
Right?
Nope, we don't. Yep, nope, your name's off the list now.
Seriously, throw him in the ocean, bro. Like, whatever. It
Like I said, put him in a garbage disposal. Take him to a recycling plant.
He didn't deserve to have a funeral with his mother.
No, not at all.
Imagine how hard that was for the family.
Yeah, for his brothers.
Yeah, his brothers and his father and his aunts, uncles, cousins, whatever. They're all coming to Margaret's funeral, and then he's there too.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's dead, but it's just a constant reminder of I don't know. That just seems like a really awkward funeral. Maybe I'm being insensitive, but that seems very awkward.
It's a roller coaster of emotions to walk by one casket really sad and one casket really mad.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't know, dude. It just seems. I just don't think they should have been together. But let's get into some more of the aftermath of the shooting. The tower itself. The tower's observation deck was closed for 2 years after the shooting, but reopened in 1968. However, it was closed back down following several suicides in 1974, and it remained closed until the fall of 1999. And access now is strictly guided and is scheduled by appointments only. It's like the fucking Eiffel Tower, bro. You can't even just walk up it no more.
I just love how it's like after several suicides, they were like, okay, fine, lock the door. Jesus.
Yeah. Well, it was
Like,
the 70s.
How many people have to die because of this tower until finally some of that school's like, okay, fine, we'll put a lock on the door.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. They've added a lot of other stuff too, because metal detectors greet you as you enter the tower now. And but still, scars from that day of the shooting can be seen in the tower's limestone, which is just insane. That's so haunting to just see the bullet marks that are all over that tower. There's also video that there's a broadcast, a local news broadcast from that specific day, like later that day, and they have actual footage, and it's just a camera that's just focused on the top of the tower, and you just see bits and smoke, just all the firing shots hitting the tower in real time, and it's disturbing, honestly, because there's no music, there's no nothing, no one's talking. You're just seeing this event happen in real time.
and it looks like it's a war zone, but it's not. It's a
not.
college campus at the top of a bell tower.
Yeah.
This isn't in the middle of some active combat.
Exactly. So let's talk about some of the survivors. Houston McCoy, one of the officers who was credited with killing Charles Whitman, was later diagnosed with PTSD. Obviously, what a traumatic event. Like, oh my God, and you were right in it.
Not only did you save a lot of people, but you also blew a man in half.
Yeah, exactly. And then Ramiro Martinez, on the other hand, he used it as a launching pad, it seems like, because he became a narcotics investigator, a Texas Ranger, and a justice of the peace in New Braunfels, Texas.
Yeah, It kind of got him a little bit of a head start.
He was a freaking legend around his police office, dude.
He's Wyatt Earp at this point.
Oh, my God.
He's walking through Texas with his big old shiny star.
Yeah, he's
got chaps on and shit.
He was a goddamn legend. He also published a memoir in 2003 titled "They Call Me Ranger Ray, From the UT Tower Sniper to Corruption in South Texas." It's quite a mouthful.
Really? Yeah.
And we needed a title, not a prologue. Am I right?
Yeah, right.
Jesus Christ.
The summary?
What is this? Like, they call me Ranger Ray, from the UT Tower Sniper to Corruption in South Texas. Yeah, that's a long ass.
It's like a thesis.
Yeah, but he released that memoir in 2003. So if you guys want to know more about Ranger Ray, go check him out. Or like we pronounce it in the Ned Kelly episode, Ranger Ray.
Ranger.
I have no idea why we did that. I guess we thought in Australia. I don't know. There's a lot on our minds. There's a lot on your mind when you podcast. It's a lot harder than it looks. A long surviving victim, David Gunby, he was the last one that we were talking about, had been born with only one functioning kidney, okay, as a child, and it was nearly destroyed when he was shot, resulting in his need for dialysis for the rest of his life. I just can't believe that son of a bitch hit his one good kidney. Like,
oh, you mother!
He didn't even know.
I know. It's just like, you
motherfucker. David Gunby didn't even know that he had one good kidney.
Really? He didn't even know at the time?
Can you imagine? You got to be like, what did I do in my life? My God.
Yeah.
To get shot in my one fucking good kidney.
I only got one, and you shot it?
You know what, though? I guess it was slightly better than getting shot in the spine and then being paralyzed forever. But in a way, he kind of was. Because
on dialysis for the next 30
needed
years.
dialysis for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, after living 30 years on dialysis, his health was fading, and David announced that he was refusing the treatments. He passed away within a week on November 12th, 2001. And since he died from a direct result of injuries, his cause of death was still listed as a homicide.
30 years later.
30, that's crazy, right?
It's
A
a direct
30-year
result from your
homicide.
injuries.
The slowest murder ever.
It's
He
very
committed
slow.
some of the quickest murders and also the slowest murders ever. But yeah, Charles Whitman slaughtered 16 people. He wounded 32 others that are suffering from serious physical and mental illnesses. Whitman obviously had some kind of mental illness of his own. He was prescribed Dexedrine at the time of the shooting, although the autopsy showed that no sign of it was in his system.
Well, that would be weak to take medicine.
Yeah, exactly. But interestingly enough, his autopsy did reveal a cancerous glioblastoma tumor in his hypothalamus region of his brain. You know what that is, Andy? It's the region that's supposed to keep your body balanced and in a stable state called homeostasis. And your hypothalamus is like your body's smart control, pretty much.
Is that why them alligators are so ornery?
They are. That's actually because they're a double oblongata.
Oh,
And because they have so much teeth.
They got no teeth.
And they got no toothbrush.
All them teeth.
But your hypothalamus, like I said, it's your body's smart control, and it regulates body temperature, blood pressure, hunger and thirst, your sense of fullness when you eat, your mood, your sex drive, and your sleep.
So just existing.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
pretty much everything that makes you you. Neurologists think that his medical condition was in some way responsible for the attacks. Well, that and the stress in his life. And, you know, he could have had like a form of CTE or something too because of the beatings from his father, because his father, you know, did not avoid the face, especially not as he got older, in the head. And then the motorcycle crash, and then, of course, you know, the tumor. Speaking of the tumor, though, I looked into this type of tumor in relation to people committing acts of violence. And according to a 2018 article in the Scientific American, a recent study contains the review of 17 known cases where criminal behavior was preceded by the onset of a brain lesion or tumor. They say lesion in this article. The question was, is there one brain region consistently involved in cases of criminal behavior? The answer is no. The researchers found that the lesions were widely distributed through different brain regions. However, all of these lesions were part of the same functional network. They were just located on different parts of a single circuit that normally allows neurons to cooperate with each other on specific cognitive tasks. In an era of increasing excitement about mapping the brain's connectome, this finding fits with our growing understanding of complex brain functions residing not in discrete brain regions, but in densely connected networks of neurons spread throughout different parts of the brain. Okay? So basically what they're trying to say is that for a long period of time, scientists would map out the brain. They would say, this part of the brain tells you when you're hungry. This part of the brain is sex drive. This part of the brain, and that's not what they're finding. These big, like, connections and neuro impulses and whatnot that connect together all over the brain. And this network that reaches all different parts of the brain and can be interfered at any part is what controls all of these things, like your hypothalamus, for instance. The network is associated with two specific components of moral psychology: theory of mind and value-based decision-making. Now, theory of mind refers to the capacity to understand other people's points of view, which he obviously did not. Also, their beliefs and emotions. This helps you appreciate, for instance, how your actions would make another person scared or hurt. Okay? Now, value-based decision-making refers to the ability to judge the value of specific actions or their consequences. This helps you see not only what the outcomes of your actions will be, but whether those actions and outcomes are good or bad. Okay, the letters written by Charles Whitman on the eve of his killing spree provide a window into a mind losing the ability to understand good, bad, and other people. Quote, "It was after much thought that I decided to kill my wife, Kathy. I love her dearly, and she has been as fine a wife to me as any man could have ever hoped to have. I cannot rationally pinpoint any specific reason for doing this." End quote. That's the key.
Because we didn't include that in the original letter, but that is directly from his letter that I cannot rationally pinpoint any specific reason for doing this.
Exactly. And if their actions were caused by brain damage and a disrupted neural network, were they acting under their own free will? You see what I'm saying? Like, if the network for rationalizing is impaired by a tumor, these impulses aren't getting there, so he's thinking there's nothing wrong with this. There's nothing wrong with this, okay? So is he acting under free will? That's the question.
To an extent, it's a valid argument, but there is also the argument to be made that he was openly kind of acknowledging there is something wrong with me.
Absolutely.
So it's like he knows that these things are not connecting properly, and but he's like, I don't know why, I don't know what's going on, I can't justify it, but I just got to do it.
Right, and there's no possible way that he would be able to diagnose himself either, though. You know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I mean, he could have.
There's people living with this type of thing today in 2023 and still aren't seeking help for it.
Yeah, he could have continued to go see those mental health people
Absolutely.
that was to one time.
Too little, too late.
Yeah,
like he should have been doing that years ago.
That's too weak. That's way too weak to go do that.
Exactly. Some scientists have followed cases like Charles's and reaching the most extreme conclusion that by uncovering the biological causes of behavior, neuroscience shows that free will, as we ordinarily understand it, is actually an illusion. But these arguments depend on a faulty conception of free will. Free will should not be understood as a mysterious ability to cause actions separate from our brain activity. In fact, just the opposite might be true. That free will requires certain connections between our brains and our actions. And after all, our brains are the biological basis of our identity, housing our memories, our values, our imagination, our ability to reason, and in other words, all the capacities necessary to make choices that are uniquely our own and to carry out actions according to our own will. Now, this understanding of free will allows us to ask better questions about the connection between the brain and criminal behavior when evaluating cases like Charles Whitman's. Instead of just pointing to the obvious fact that an action had a neural cause, which every action does, every single action, whether you pick up your cup or whether you shoot someone, but we can ask whether a person's specific neurologic injury impaired the psychological capacities that were necessary for free will at the time.
That is a complex argument to get into.
It's a mouthful. Well. You might want to rewind and listen to that again, because I read this article like 3 times before it really started to sink in, and it is pretty amazing.
Yeah,
it's pretty profound.
It's an argument to have
terrifying,
on both sides.
Honestly. It's terrifying to know that you could get a tumor and it totally changed your brain chemistry. You're unable to reason. There were, in the book, Ryan Green covered some cases where different people were affected by brain tumors similar to what Charles has. One man actually gained a sexual attraction to children. Never had it before in his life. Went and got help for it, thank God. Didn't act on it. Went and got help. And he's like, there's something wrong with me. Like, I all of a sudden am attracted to children. They found out he had a tumor. They removed it. He was fine.
Thank God, yes.
He went back to normal. That is fucking crazy. And then me and Andy covered a case on Strange Shorts not that long ago. Guy had a tumor. Started speaking in an Irish accent. Or what was it, Irish accent?
Yep. Had a head injury or a tumor.
Never even been to Ireland. Started speaking in an Irish accent. Absolutely insane.
Exactly.
Insane. So, with that said, we're at the discussion part of the show, Andy. Was Charles Whitman a monster or a sufferer or a little both?
It's hard to really pinpoint because it's nature versus nurture. He was brought up with abusive father who pushed him so hard, and then his brain chemistry is already messed up. So it's just a compounding situation of whether or not this person was born, with a deficiency,
right,
or if the situations he was brought into influenced it.
Yeah.
So it's hard to really pinpoint because yes, this man clearly has mental health issues. He has a tumor in his brain.
I was about to say, or did the tumor literally affect certain processes from completing their function in his brain? Or what caused the tumor? Did the head injuries cause the tumor?
Yeah, he
did. Therefore the tumor caused the shooting.
He had several head injuries throughout his life and stuff. So that's not that's not outside the realm of possibilities.
Yeah. So you have to ask yourself, was he a sociopath? Was he mentally ill? Or was his brain deformed by a tumor? I think yes, all of the things.
It's hard to really think sociopath because of even in his letters how he says I know I shouldn't do this. I feel bad for this. I'm so sorry. He genuinely, it's he knows he shouldn't do this, but he can't rationalize why he can't do it.
Yes.
He feels like he has to do it and he doesn't know why, but he's sorry for doing it. So it's almost it's kind of you almost lean more towards brain tumor or lean towards something behind the scenes instead of just sociopathy.
Yeah.
Because
I agree.
Yeah, he clearly knows that he's doing something wrong, but he can't stop it.
Yeah. So in that sense, would you vilify or sympathize with him? It sounds like you're sympathizing with him a little
I
bit.
sympathize with the man before the actions. It's like after you take those actions, it's like you chose not to get help.
You can't sympathize with him anymore.
It's like you went to a psychiatrist and you chose not to go back. You went to a doctor and you chose not to go back.
Right.
And you kept choosing not to do these things, and the people in your life didn't support you to continue to do these things.
Right.
So you had the options available to you to get the help you needed, and he rejected them. So it's you have sympathy up until the point of when he does the crimes.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yes, there was something wrong with you. You had a brain tumor. You had an aggressive, abusive childhood. You had some things wrong behind the scenes.
Right.
But you had the options to get help, and you didn't take them.
Right.
So.
And here's what's aggravating, though. Like, even if you do vilify him, which we do, you can't put this person on a pedestal or even give them an excuse. That's bullshit. But even when you do vilify them to the public, it doesn't do any good. It doesn't. Does it deter future shooters? Because I don't think it does.
No, because you're still talking about them. You're still making a whole story about them. That's the biggest issue, is the mental health issue. It's like if we could get the person who had these mental health issues to have gotten the treatment, it wouldn't have been about, do we have to vilify them as a shooter or victimize them as a shooter. It's like you wouldn't have him as a shooter if the mental health treatment and health care that he could have gotten had actually been taken through its course.
Right. Well, either way, guys, it's a tough discussion, and you can go round and round with this. And I found this quote at the end of one of the articles that I read, and I thought it was perfect to end this episode on. It says, "As we struggle to contain accelerating gun violence in the U.S., let's at least let our choices be based on research and evidence rather than on prejudice and preconception." Mm-hmm. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself, man. I think it's what it needs to be. It's like we need to, if something has a direct correlation to this happening more often, then we need to make that step. You know what I'm saying? Or we need to make... It's a tough discussion, man. It really is. It takes someone a lot more intelligent than us. It is a lot to discuss. But, guys, you know what? I found out who suggested this case, by the way, for End, and it just popped back in my head. And you're not going to believe this. It's freaking Chelsea Richardson.
There you go.
Chelsea. You know why I say freaking Chelsea? Because, Chelsea, we did your case last week. Ned Kelly was also your suggestion.
Oh, well, look at you. Just making it
2 suggestions in a row? I don't know if we've ever done 2 listener suggestions in a row before.
3 in a row, it's like a turkey.
Hey, if you bring one more good one.
You get a turkey. We'll send you a turkey.
I don't know, Chelsea. You might need to take a break. You're killing me with these timelines. These were 2 long-ass timelines for these cases. But I appreciate it very much, guys. I appreciate the support. We love you guys here on Patreon. We love being able to do the Patreon exclusives. And we want to give you guys a shout out, of course, which is what I'm looking up right now, pulling up a list of our new patrons this month. And we're going to give y'all a big old TCG thank you, hopefully.
We have been getting a couple new patrons, new subscribers. Our YouTube channel's kind of growing lately. I'm getting a little bit more traffic over there.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, we are getting some new people, new listeners, new creepers joining the army.
Yeah, we are.
It's nice.
We appreciate it. Like Andy said, guys, go check us out on TikTok, too. Go follow on there. We're trying to build that audience there. And, we're trying on all the platforms. And if you like I said, if you listen to this episode, go watch it next time, or watch the next TCG Proper. Every TCG Proper episode, we will have video on YouTube. Of course, if it's a Patreon exclusive, that video is also Patreon exclusive. So you can't tell your friends about this video, but that's neither here nor there. Well, let's see. Let's go back. We're gonna go back a month for these shout outs. It's March 24th today. Let's go on back to February 23rd. What do you think?
Yeah, sounds about right.
Quite a few on February 23rd. All right, let's see here. We need a better... There we go.
Let's get some of these names out here.
Let's get some of these names. Going back to February 23rd. Guys, if we missed your shout-out, please let us know, and I will give you one in a future episode. But I want to give a big old True Crime Guys thank you to Vexed Devlin, Carol, Jared Hill, Kim Waldack, Robert Edmonds, TX Castle, Eleni Duncan, Hank Haywood, Leslie Siddick? Holy Diver. Holy Diver! Amanda Dawson. The Thing from Hangar 18.
Paul Giacominto?
Nailed it.
That's a tough name for me. Glad
I'm glad you started on that one.
Glad I took over on Paul Giacominato.
I think it's Gia, actually.
Giacominato? Paul Giacominato. And then Matt. Yeah.
And then
I could have just started on Matt.
Yeah, you should have started on Matt.
Linda Greenwood. Matthew Schleckman?
It's Schmeh.
Schmeh. Chris.
Uh-huh.
Ali Enright.
Uh-huh.
Dustin.
Yep.
Raul Marquez. T-Dogs, and Ali Zagurich.
Yeah. Also, Van...
Nguyen?
I
think that would be Nguyen.
Nguyen?
Yeah,
Nguyen?
Nguyen. I think Nguyen. Yeah.
Okay. Leslie. Diana Dennett. Did I hit them all? I think I hit them all. Spinster. Alexandria Bear. Alexandria Bear. Yeah, like the paint. Sammy and Alyssa Smith joined at 9:08 a.m. today on the day we're recording.
You know what?
So,
you got in there at the last minute. Let's still get you a shout out.
That's like the quickest turnaround for a shout out ever.
It's the quickest. You get in there, we'll get you in there.
That's right. But guys, thank you so much. All of you new patrons, all of you old patrons, thank you even more. And guys, tell your friends about Patreon. Also, let them know there's a free trial, right? So if they're tight, whatever, they can try for 7 days.
Just get a little taste.
Yeah, just get a little taste. A little 7 days for free. That's what we like to do. We like to give them a little taste.
Mm-hmm.
Don't we,
First
Andy?
one's for free.
That's right. First one's free, guys, for 7 whole days.
That's how we hook 'em.
Credit card information is required.
That's how we hook 'em.
All right, guys. That's pretty much it. We'll see you guys next week for a new TCG proper episode. We'll see you guys on YouTube as well, as per usual. Be sure to check out the latest Sandu stories. Chapter 25, like we said, that is the conclusion to our 3-part series on the experiment. And next month, we will be starting a whole new series. Mm-hmm. So very excited about that. We got 2 new series already planned for you guys. So very excited about the future of Sandu stories. And so guys, we'll see you next week. Thanks again, and keep creeping.
I think you should.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
See you guys.
Bye.
True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder. True crime guys, in the desert we like a mirage. It's okay if you clicked on us cause you thought we was True Crime Garage. Now we ain't mad at you, sit down, let us talk at you. I'm talking to the creeper army, we out here making murder charming.
You hush your mouth, boy.
All right.